Welcome to Orphans No More, a radio extension of Justice for Orphans Ministry, a program dedicated to rally the church for the cause of the fatherless, advocating Christian families to adopt and get involved with foster care here in the Capital District, as well as globally, and encouraging and supporting those who've heard and heeded the call of James 1:27.
We know what real love is because Jesus gave up his life for us. So we ought to give up our lives for our brothers and sisters. Dear children, let's not merely say that we love each other. Let us show the truth by our actions. That's 1 John chapter 3, verses 16 and 18. I'm Sandra Fleck, your host of Orphans No More. Our guest today is Chicago adoptive mom Carla Dobrovits. Carla is mom to 6 biological children and 4 children adopted from Ukraine, and she sits on the board of directors for Reece's Rainbow, a nonprofit organization which advocates and finds families for orphans with Down syndrome and other special needs by raising funds for adoption grants, promoting awareness through their online community. Welcome to the show, Carla.
Hello, Sandra. I am so happy to be here today.
I am thrilled that you have joined us, and I just am so touched by your story. So let's kind of begin at the beginning. You and your husband, Paul, have 6 biological children. That's no small feat in itself, but you went on to adopt. So what led you to adoption?
Well, you know, if you want to make the Lord laugh, you tell him your plan,
Yeah.
Sandra, because I had a big family, certainly already by the standards of the world, and my youngest biological child was born in 2009. I had 6 children in a span of 18 years. My oldest was 18 when my youngest was born. So we were looking at getting children into college. We were thinking I was a little older. I was already over 40 at that point. And we needed to think of what we were going to do next. I like to spend January 1st, the first day of every new year, seeing what will be my focus for the coming year. One year I was led to run a half marathon. January 1st, 2011, I was led to Google helping orphans. A friend of mine had adopted a sibling group of 3 from Ethiopia. She was even 10 years older than I was, and she had no friends who had young kids. So I had spent the fall hanging out with her, with my youngest 3, who were under the age of 4 at that time, and hanging out with her and really seeing that even though it was hard work, what a wonderful blessing adoption was to all involved. So I thought I should do some more to help other people adopting. So I Googled helping orphans, and one of the first hits that came up was an organization called Reece's Rainbow. Reece's Rainbow is very unique. It is not an adoption agency. What it does is it highlights children who are free and available for international adoption from many different countries. So many different programs, many different countries. You can see what program your family qualifies for. Many of the children have photo listings. Many have medical information. Many you have to request that from somewhere else. But we're kind of like an online clearinghouse that if anyone is interested in international adoption, whether supporting it, praying for it, or possibly interested in doing it themselves, you can go to that website, which is reecesrainbow.org, and take a look. So I just started taking a look, and my mind was just blown. I had never realized how many children with various levels of special needs. Reece's Rainbow was founded 10 years ago by a mom here in the United States, Andrea, who had a son with Down syndrome, and she was shocked that children, especially with Down syndrome, were hidden away, institutionalized, not given an education, not given the opportunity to meet their full potential in other parts of the world. So she started Reece's Rainbow 10 years ago, this is our 10th year, to bring a voice to the voiceless, to bring awareness. And boy, Reece's Rainbow did that for me in spades, Sandra. I was shocked and was looking at all the children who were there who needed a home and who would otherwise be institutionalized. I was very amazed to see there were some very young children. Was drawn to one little guy who had 2 special needs listed, cleft palate and arthrogryposis. And I thought, I'll donate some money because we can start grant funds for children so that when their family is ready to jump, there might be a small pot of money there to get them started to encourage them. So I saw that, and I thought, I'm just going to donate some money to him and pray for him to be a family. Until I started becoming convicted that I thought maybe God wanted us to be his family. And I thought, oh, my husband's going to kill me. I mean, we already had 6 children. We were already thinking about sending a kid to college. But as time went on and I became convicted, I presented to my husband the little guy's profile. I presented the fact that we met every qualification to adopt from his country, Ukraine, which has a little stricter qualifications. And then I just said, Paul, I need you to be as convicted as me. I'm going to be quiet now. You tell me what you think. And then I did one of the hardest things I've ever done in my marriage, Sandra. I shut up for a whole month, and I let Paul think about that. I didn't want him to be pressured. Adoption is a hard thing, and a husband and a wife need to be on completely the same page.
That's
for
right.
that. We can talk about that more later. And a month later, Paul said, yes, I'm convicted also. Let's go. Let's jump. So we did. We were in Ukraine 6 months, and Sandra, I will say $20,000 later. We, through the help of Reese's Rainbow, through the online community, and through a lot of work here in our area, here south of Chicago, the generosity of many, many wonderful people, we raised $20,000 to go adopt in less than 6 months. You know, it's kind of funny. Children are not like minivans. The bank will give you a loan for a minivan. Most of them are not willing to give you a loan to go save a child and add to your family. Most people don't have that kind of money sitting around. So we were very blessed. We did that, and we went and met our little guy, Henry. Henry was in the hospital, in a hospital when we adopted him in Ukraine when we first met him. He was severely disabled, so much more so than the original listing seemed to imply. And it probably was because he had headed downhill pretty substantially in the months before we had gotten there. Henry actually had a rare genetic condition called Larsen syndrome, which had a constellation of various disabilities, the most serious of which was 130-degree curvature of his spine that would have suffocated him by the time he was 5. His spine looked like the letter S, essentially, on the top and on the bottom. We brought Henry home, and thus began a 14-month odyssey of constant medical treatment, constant surgery, constant pediatric intensive care unit admissions, both here in Chicago and at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. We ended up traveling there for a good portion of his treatment because his condition was just so rare and severe, and they had some doctors who had seen this condition, which only 50 people in the world have at any one time.
Wow.
And,
Carla, how old was Henry at the time you adopted him?
Henry was 14 months old. He had just turned a year. Henry weighed 11 pounds. Henry was severely malnourished. From that hole in his mouth, that cleft palate, he had constant aspiration pneumonia. His lungs were scarred from the terrible, improper way children are fed in many orphanages around the world. And just, again, he was in something called a lying down room, which, Sandra, I had never heard of. I never knew they existed. They exist, again, in many countries where children with disabilities are warehoused, for lack of a better term. They are given the minimum of physical care and no emotional care at all. Henry was never talked to in his presence. It was considered that since he was so disabled in body, he must be so in mind, but he was not. We saw such progress in his emotional situation. He was bonded with us. He had a play life. He would play. Although he never sat up, never held his head up, he was starting to babble after we did some surgeries and got him in a better spot. So he was like our treasured baby boy. But sadly, in November of 2012, he was 14 months old when we got him, and we had him in our family, Sandra, for 14 months. and due to the complications of a surgery and his just generally really, really difficult physical state, Henry went to be with the Lord November 28th of 2012 at the hospital here in Chicago. While he was very, very sick, his death was not expected, and it hit all of us very hard. We all hear the happy endings, right? We got this sick child, and all these wonderful things happened, and I think we need to talk more about the situations that are not the fairy tale ending, right?
Yeah.
Those that are a hard thing for everyone. Not hard for Henry. No more pain. Healed and whole in heaven.
In those last 14 months, he had parents and a family who loved him.
Yes, and that I said I was not privileged to be there when he came into the world. He was abandoned at birth by his biological mom, but I was privileged to be there when he left this world. Yeah. And that was my job, to usher him into that. We need to follow that will of the Lord, and sometimes it's not what our will is. But it is perfect, however he wills it. And that can be a hard thing. I'm a little bit of a type A person. I thought I could control everything and I would make everything better by sheer force of my will and my preparation and everything else. But not really. It took me a long time to realize I'm not in charge. The Lord is. And Henry's coming to us and the time we had and his death and afterward was a very important spiritual turning point for me. Frankly, I think anyone that's walked into an orphanage, you can't walk out the same person.
I agree.
Once you've seen that, you can't go back.
No. You're right.
So we had been interested in adopting again because of that experience, Sandra. We said, oh my goodness, there are so many other children in need. When Henry is stabilized, when things are good with him, let's consider adopting one more child. Well, clearly Henry was taken care of in the arms of the Lord. And after a few months, we thought maybe we'll do this again. I like to say I picked Henry, and on our next adoption, my husband picked the children we brought home in 2013. It was a sibling group of 3. They were listed on Reese's Rainbow, I think March of 2013. 11-year-old girl, typical. 3-year-old boy, cleft lip. 1-year-old girl, translation, organic disorder of the brain. Sometimes these things are not precise and don't translate well. That could have meant anything from developmentally delayed to, severe brain problems, cerebral palsy, etc. And for whatever reason, my husband said those 3. I think that's what we're supposed to do, those 3. Wow, quite a bit of the change, adopting one child but with severe medical needs to adopting 3 with 2 of them clearly not having as severe medical needs, but one kind of question mark unknown. So we were there in the fall because we'd done this before. This wasn't our first rodeo. Boy, after you do that first adoption, you can just roll through all that paperwork.
Yeah, you know what you're doing.
As anyone, right? Yeah, you know what you're doing. So we did that. We were there. We met our older 11-year-old girl, Vika. She was not raised with her 2 younger siblings. She knew she had a younger brother, but had never met him. And she didn't know about her baby sister because they were separated by about an hour and a half between an older child's orphanage and the baby house in the city in way, way eastern Ukraine, like 75 miles from the Russian border. They all, the 2 oldest spoke Russian. We adopted them. The baby house the 2 younger ones were in were much better than the baby house my Henry was in. Leo had gotten some medical treatment, had had a first surgery for his cleft lip. Although another mom who adopted through Reese's Rainbow was there right after he had the surgery, and she said she saw him every day. We realized later when we were talking, she saw him every day in the infirmary, and his arms were tied to the bed with ropes so he couldn't scratch off, or disturb the lip repair.
Right.
And every day she went to visit her daughter who had Down syndrome and was a little sickly. She saw him there every day, and he was just laying in that bed crying quietly.
Aww.
As a 2-year-old, just crying every day, just laying there tied up, couldn't move with his arms. Another family was there 2 months before we were there, and she took a picture of him, and he was crying again. And the nanny said he cried all the time, crying child. And then we met him, and I say that day, the Lord worked a miracle of emotions rather than physical, because the day that boy met my husband, he was a changed child. He became the happiest child in that orphanage. He just had hope. He would just, my papa. My papa. He would just chatter in Russian. Papa, 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 papa. My husband had to go back. I was there for 59 days completing this adoption, which was a little crazy, but huge region, 3 kids, 2 orphanages, crazy stuff. And that was actually when the stuff was happening in Kiev for when the President Yanukovych resigned due to not joining the European Union, and the popular uprising on the Maidan appeared. I saw the Lenin statue laying on the street with men hitting it with iron hammers. That was when we were there.
Wow.
And it got a little crazier months later.
It's always an adventure when you travel to Ukraine.
It is. Yeah. Ukraine is the Wild West of adoptions, is what I say. But Leo called. Paul had him through the interpreter saying, I have to go back home and wait for you and get everything ready, and Mama will bring you home on the airplane to me. So every time Leo would see an airplane, he would say, Papa. For 6 months till he learned English well, he called airplanes Papa.
Aww.
Leo is still quite a daddy's boy. Leo will be 7. Leo's had 2 more surgeries for his lip. Leo, though, is otherwise quite the physical specimen. He goes camping, backpacking, and canoeing with my husband and his older brothers. They went to Colorado last year, and then 5-year-old Leo bagged 12,000 foot peaks.
Wow.
He crossed in Rocky Mountain National Park with a little backpack on his back. And this year they're going on a canoe trip, Boundary Waters and into Canada, and they'll have everything for 9 days on a canoe, and they'll carry everything over portages and camp. And Leo's just the happiest boy in the world when he gets to be with his daddy and his big brothers and do these things.
Tell us about the youngest, because that organic disorder of the brain, scary diagnosis for an adoptive parent.
Scary diagnosis, and a little scary when we met her. She was super tiny. I don't know, Sandra, if you've seen some of the dead eyes of some of the children in the orphanages. Yana was drugged, I think because she was so mobile and didn't want to stay in a crib, didn't want to be contained. She was drugged. And we weren't sure. She didn't speak at 18 months. She barked like a dog. But we brought her home, got her started with speech and occupational therapy, some good protein, some good nutrition. Oh, she also had 3 intestinal parasites.
Oh,
we had to treat. We had a serious drug regimen going for about 6 months after. And once the medical treatment started going, once that therapy started going, once she got a little love and she wasn't having night terrors and waking up every hour during the night, I didn't sleep for about 6 months, she started making some real progress. And by age 3, she was considered as having no speech deficits, no physical deficits, took her to the at-risk preschool, again, no deficits, no IEP. She's really not tagged as even to watch anything. Yana is now 5. She turned 5 in May. She's at gymnastics right now. She is a little gymnastics monster at the age of 5. And Yana is the youngest of our now 9 children. She's 5. My oldest is 25 now. And Yana thinks she runs our entire house. That little girl who couldn't barely look at anything with dead eyes, Yana takes care of the stuff in our house. And if she thinks something's not going right, she lets people know.
Oh, it's incredible.
So that did, we had the worst side of an unknown diagnosis with Henry, and we really had the best side with Yana of that diagnosis. Really, I don't think had any meaning other than we found out there that she was a 32-week preemie. So there probably was some developmental delays from that and orphanage life, as you know.
Yeah. Let me just remind our listeners, I'm Sandra Flack, your co-host of Orphans No More, a radio extension of Justice for Orphans Ministry. To learn more about adoption, foster care, or orphan ministry, visit our website, justicefororphansny.org. My guest today is Chicago adoptive mom, Carla Dobrovits. Carla and her husband Paul are parents to 6 biological kids and 4 children through adopting. The Lord led them through Reece's Rainbow. Reece's Rainbow is a nonprofit organization which advocates and finds families for orphans with Down syndrome and other special needs by raising funds for adoption grants and promoting awareness through an online community, media, communications, and other events. You can learn more about Reece's Rainbow and look at pictures of waiting children, kids waiting for their forever family. You can pray for them. Donate toward their adoption fund at reecesrainbow.org. Carla, Reece's Rainbow is a big part of your life. You now sit on the board. Tell us a little bit more about Reece's Rainbow.
Yes, I would love to. We are really unique, I feel, in the international adoption community because we are neither an agency nor specific kind of some of the other more we'll just give you money and then you go adopt. Okay? I feel like we sit in a niche in between in a couple ways. First of all, again, we can help you find the right international program for if you're interested in adoption, you can find the right international program for your family. We have people who've done every country and every possible combination of special needs you can ever think of. We can give you been there, done that. We can hook you up with specific resources based on a specific special need or a specific country. People can give suggestions of places that they've worked with that have been good, bad, in between. We can tell you how international adoption works in your specific state. So we can give you kind of a long view, bird's eye overview of the international adoption process, whatever special need you're interested in and wherever you are. And I think that global perspective is really needed because I just went to CAFO, Christian Alliance for Orphans Conference, this past May. First time Reece's Rainbow was there. It was amazing. And everyone's got a niche, and it's beautiful because the Lord's led everyone to do specific things in the community. But sometimes that can be overwhelming to a first-time adoptive family or someone looking into it. Everyone just does a little piece. Well, what do you mean? I have to go here to find out this, and now I have to go to this person to find out this. I have to go to this person. We can really help give that global overview. Second of all, the number one thing that people say scares them about international adoption when I talk to them is raising money.
That's right. I hear that all the time.
The thing about foster care adoption is it's essentially free in most states, right? And that's a beautiful thing. Foster care, domestic foster care is a beautiful thing. There are some reasons why it's not for everyone. For me, in the state I'm in, with 6 biological children, I had too many children to qualify to do foster care. A lot of states cap you at 6 under 18. But I still felt called to add to my family, and especially for a child with special needs. So if you're looking at international adoption for kind of any reason, we can help alleviate that financial burden. How can we do that? A couple ways. You can look and see waiting children who already have grant funds. Right now, Sandra, through the generosity of many, many donors, if you are interested in adopting a waiting child with Down syndrome over the age of 10, we can give you a $15,000 grant to adopt them.
Wow.
There's no other qualification other than that you have a home study that qualifies you to go internationally and adopt one of these children. And that money gets dispersed before you travel. So a lot of people come to us because they've had a child with Down syndrome and they go, wow, this is not only as terrible as people led me to believe, this is great. We love our child. Maybe we want to look at having a child to raise with them so that they're not alone in our family, alone in the community. because as we all know, 90% of the children with Down syndrome here domestically don't make it out of the womb. We have a much smaller pool of children with Down syndrome available to adopt here in the U.S. But overseas, sadly, there's a huge, or happily, there's a huge pool because at least these children were allowed to live in the first place. So, I would say an international adoption is $25,000. We've got half that cost if the Lord's leading you and you have the call and the qualification to adopt an older child with Down syndrome. We have other special needs, though, cerebral palsy, blind, deaf. Some of those special needs are not what we consider special needs here in America, right? Cleft lip, cleft palate. That being said, you still do have to consider that children adopted internationally who've been raised in institutions are not going to be typical children emotionally. We can help prepare you for the challenge that sometimes comes with adopting more typical children emotionally and intellectually who were raised overseas, the attachment issues that sometimes can come. We are really working on building up our resources so that we can have our families properly qualified ahead of time and so that there's more support afterwards. Again, pray. You can pray for these children. You can share their online profiles. Join our official Reese's Rainbow Facebook group, and you can share the profiles and the families who are getting these children. Donate. We ask you for your financial support, and consider adoption. www.reecesrainbow.org, ReecesRainbow.org. Come join our community. We'd love to have you for anything you can do to support our mission.
Carla, thank you for sharing your story today and for all that you're doing, parenting your kiddos, and for advocating for children who are waiting for their forever family. And thank you for joining us today. Again, to learn more about Reese's Rainbow, it's an incredible organization that has such supports out there for you. You can pray, you can share, donate, adopt a waiting child in need. Visit their website, reecesrainbow.org. If you'd like to listen to more episodes of Orphans No More, you can find them on our website, and you can contact me, Sandra Flack, anytime through our website at justicefororphansny.org. Our mission is to rally the church for the cause of the fatherless by inspiring, educating, and equipping the body of Christ toward adoption, foster care, and orphan ministry.
Thank you for supporting this program by listening today, sharing what you've heard, and praying for orphans and children in need everywhere. More information is available at justicefororphansny.org. Visit and discover how you can make a difference in a child's life. And be sure to tune in to Orphans No More next Friday.